Do you feel anxious, overwhelmed, or find yourself worrying about the future? Does the emotional burden of anxiety, stress, and self doubt weigh you down? Then you're going to love this emotional processing tool that can help you process your anxiety in 2 minutes or less. No more letting anxiety run your life or your decisions. When you use this tool, you're left with a clear, calm, peaceful version of you.
Do you want to heal your relationship with yourself and grow closer to God, but anxiety, perfectionism, and trust issues make connection feel hard and unsafe? If you said yes, you're in the right place. Hey, I'm Micaiah Gray, a Christian woman, wife, and mom. After years of struggling, I learned the secret to healing from my past so I could finally feel secure, loved, and confident. If you're ready to see yourself the way God does, fully trust in the Lord with all your heart, and finally connect deeply with others, then grab your journal, tea, and a pen because I'm about to speak so much life into you, friend.
Hey, friend, are you ready to find your way back to fully trusting God? Are you ready to give and receive biblical encouragement with other women who are also on a healing journey with God? If you said yes, that is exactly why I am asking you to come join us in the Emotional Healing for Christian Women Facebook group. Inside this free community, you will learn the biblical healing tools, receive support, get prayer, and find connection with other believers. Join us today by clicking the link in the show notes or going to bit.ly/biblical healing group. I know that feeling when your chest tightens and your shoulders tensely lean forward. Your mind is racing, trying to find the reason your body just switched into survival mode. A panic washes over you, yet you feel the tension in your mind to keep your calm and cool composure on the outside. You try to hold it all together, but inside you're at war. This is what anxiety felt like for me. Maybe your experience is similar, and maybe it looks different. Sometimes my anxiety also shows up as anger. It isn't always a typical look, but when you lose that sense of safety inside yourself, your whole body carries the toll of that. It's mentally, emotionally, and physically heavy. That is why the tool I'm teaching you today is so important. If you practice this often and you master the art of implementing it in your life, you will find your anxiety no longer holds power over you. You'll be able to switch from chaos to peace in a matter of 2 minutes or less. Now we're going to dive into the actual 4-step process on how to do this. And so the first step in this process is 1, name the emotion. So what this means is you're going to find a very specific name for the emotion you're feeling. Beyond anxiety or fear or sadness or mad. We want to get past those surface level basic emotion words that we were taught in elementary, and we want to get into more specific emotional terms and get as specific as you possibly can. So for example, some more specific words that could be in the anxiety category would be panicked, paralyzed, paranoid, petrified, powerless, rejected, scared, self-conscious, shut down, stressed, weak, alarmed, alienated, apprehensive, attached, attacked, awkward, doubtful, dull, embarrassed, fearful, fidgety, fragile, freaked out, frightened, insecure, insignificant, intimidated, jittery, left out, lifeless, lousy, moody, neglectful, nervous, obsessive, off, ostracized, out of sorts, or overburdened. And that is just a small portion of a very large amount of emotion or feeling words that we could put in this category. Now, you might be wondering why this is important. And it's important because the more specific you are about the emotion's name, the less power it has over you. Now, this is based off of research. Research shows that naming an emotion alone can reduce the impact it has on you by 50%. So, 1, that's so important because the more specific you name it, it matters, right? And so if we were to say, like, for example, this is kind of a silly example, but my husband gets so mad when I call our truck a car, and he's like, it's not a car. And I'm like, but car is just an overarching word. It could be any type of car. And he's like, no, that's vehicle. Vehicle could be any type of transportation vehicle. But a car is a car and a truck is a truck. He's very insistent on this. And so in other areas of life as well, it might matter if you call something an electronic or if you call it a phone. It could have completely different meanings if you say go do this on the phone versus if you say go do this on an electronic device, right? And so when we name our emotions with complete accuracy, as specifically as possible, it allows this to be more effective. And if you never get past this first step, you're already reducing half of the emotional weight, half of that burden that you're carrying in that moment already gone in the first step. So that's why it's first, and that's why it's so important. So how do you actually do this? Well, I have some different points here. So one, you really want to grow your emotional vocabulary so that you have more power to specifically name your emotions. This means learning the definitions and the words for emotion/feeling words. And it's like my dream one day to make a resource for this, like an emotion dictionary. And so that might come down the road. But for now, there's so many resources online that you can find for this. I would just encourage you to try to learn a new one every week if you can, if not a new one every month, and just practice. Practice getting very specific with these words and using them in your everyday language. That will empower you. And then, of course, if you have kids, then your kids are watching. If you're around your friends, your coworkers, your loved ones, your family, your spouse or your significant other, like then you get to rub off on them a little bit in that way as well and use those more specific words with them. And at first they might not know what you mean, but context is everything, right? And a lot of how we learn language is by using it in real life. So, okay. And then the second thing here is that you want to stop and notice when you're experiencing a big emotion. So the biggest part of this whole first step is actually noticing when you're having it and mastering the pause. You have to master the pause. This takes time and repetition. It's not something that I can just say to you and you will be instantly able to do it tomorrow. It is something that you're going to have to practice, the pause. And you can use the tool and use it messily and not have the pause mastered yet. So I'm not saying wait to use the tool. You can use this tool today. But as far as being hard on yourself, don't be too hard on yourself if you can't master that pause right away. Know that it takes time. It takes a lot of repetition, and we need to be graceful with ourselves during this process. Okay, and why the pause? The pause is important because it allows you to actually have time to process what's happening so that you can slow down and actually have time to name the emotion, right? Instead of if your immediate reaction is to spiral into your thoughts, into destructive thoughts, or if it's to distract yourself, or if it's to react, to resist, whatever your natural tendency is, we want to avoid going into that. And we do that by pausing. Okay. So, and I want to say an example of this too, because you might be like, pause. Okay, but what does that really look like? It literally looks like you just noticing you're having this emotion, like, oh, I am experiencing blank. Oh, this is blank. Even if you don't get the specific emotion right away, like that's going to take practice too, right? So at first you might just say, oh, this is anxiety. And you might just take a deep breath. And then you can process, what do I do next? How do I handle this? Right? And it sounds slow because I'm explaining it to you, but all of this can be done in a really quick time frame. And I'll talk about more of that at the end of this. So the third thing here is you just want to name the emotion out loud. Just say it. You can say it to yourself. You can say it in the form of prayer, like to God. You can say it to a person around you. And it can sound like, I'm experiencing blank emotion right now. Just simply notice it without shifting into a state of blame. That's really important. We want to avoid blaming. We want to avoid shaming. And we want to avoid needing to explain or justify the emotion. We want to avoid also trying to get rid of the emotion right away. So you also want to avoid saying things like, I am blank emotion. I am sad. I am mad. We don't want to say that we are that emotion because that's taking it as a part of us or as a part of our personality. And it's not a personality trait. It's not a part of you. It's just an experience you're having in your body. And that's very important to differentiate. I know it's just a matter of a couple words, but it really does matter. Words matter. Okay. So this leads us right into our second step, which is step 2, accept the emotion without judgment or pushing it away. So what this means is just accept that the emotion is there. It doesn't mean you having the emotion doesn't mean that anything has gone wrong. Because you feel anxiety creeping up, that doesn't mean something horrible is going to happen. Like, there doesn't have to be some horrible reason you're having it, right? And I think the brain's default can be to look for and find the reason that you're panicking internally. However, you don't need to give in to your body's natural tendency to find a reason. And I want you to practice specifically avoiding this and avoid assuming that your anxious feeling or thought is a warning from God of impending doom. I don't know if you've ever done that, but I know I've done it, and I had a parent who did this, and it can be really unhealthy when you are assuming that your anxiety is coming from the Holy Spirit. You really do have to learn the difference between your body's natural cue of anxiety or panic or switching into survival mode from the Holy Spirit speaking to you. And for me, I find that God does not usually show up as anxiety, or ever really, because he's not a God of fear. God does not give us a spirit of fear. And so if it's showing up like that, it's not from God. Now, I do believe that God sometimes warns us of things, but I believe even in his warnings, his peace is there to prove that it's from him. Okay, and then why? Why do we do this step? It can seem like a small, silly step, almost like it shouldn't be a step of its own, but it's really important that we separate it out so that it gets differentiated, because it really shouldn't be skipped. This step allows you to be prepared to just feel the emotion, which is coming in a later step. It allows you to accept that the emotion's there so that it can run its course and dissipate, instead of choosing to spiral, distract, resist, or react to the emotion, which if you do one of those 4 things, then you find that emotion feeling worse and worse and worse instead of getting better. So how this works is you will just say something along the lines of, I am experiencing blank emotion, right? That's what we started with. But then we're going to build on that, and it's okay. Nothing has gone wrong. It's just a chemical reaction in my body. Now, of course, you can take all of these example sentences / thoughts that I'm giving you and make them your own. They have to sound like something you would say or think, but this is a great place to start. And, we'll have to dive into another episode talking about how an emotion is just a chemical reaction in your body. But I think telling myself that has been one of the number one things that has helped me to process my emotions. Because before, emotions felt all-consuming and they almost felt mysterious. Like no one explained to me what an emotion was or where it came from until I got certified as a life coach, and I realized, oh, wow, it's just a chemical reaction in my body with symptoms. That's all that's happening. Which leads us right into our next thing, because step 3 is to name what it feels like in your body, which means, in other words, what are the symptoms of that emotion? So I kind of gave you a picture of this in the beginning of this episode when I was talking about my experience of anxiety and what it feels like for me. So for me, just as a reminder, it could look like sweating, a prickling sensation, heat in my face, a tense chest with chest pains, a turning feeling in my stomach, or racing thoughts in my head. So these are the physiological symptoms that I'm feeling and then interpreting as this emotion. They're also sometimes called somatic symptoms, but it's what is actually uncomfortable about the emotion. And that's why this is so powerful, because the emotion on what we imagine an emotion was before we learned better is what we thought was making things uncomfortable. It's like, this depression is crippling, this anxiety is crippling, like this feels heavy, like I'm crushed by the weight of it. But really what it is it's a physical symptom that feels uncomfortable in your body. And the best part about knowing that is that it's optional. And once you know that, a lot of these symptoms can actually just be gone the second you realize they're there. Now, that might sound a little far-fetched, but I want you to actually just practice this, stick with me, because I have a really good example here too. For example, my shoulder posture when I'm having anxiety immediately tilts forward. My shoulders crunch low or high. Honestly, sometimes they do go high. but they just crunch forward. And I do this hunchback thing. I don't know why, but it happens. And then my chest gets really tense and tight and sharp. And it feels like this crushing feeling, like my body's trying to curl up into a ball. And that makes the anxiety feeling worse. It makes my symptoms worse. As soon as I notice I'm doing it and I stand up tall again and I put my shoulders back, I immediately feel better in all those symptoms. There might be a few symptoms left, but those are my main ones. And I immediately dissipated them by just sitting up straight, pushing my shoulders back, and taking a deep breath. So as you begin to notice what's happening in your specific body and then allowing yourself to kind of ease back into a natural posture, and the goal is not always to correct it, but we want to at least notice the symptom. And then from there, you might naturally autocorrect. I know once I notice I'm crunching my shoulders forward, I naturally put them back. So anyways, these symptoms are the reason you feel like distracting, numbing, spiraling, resisting, or reacting. And so noticing them allows them to not feel so intense. And once you focus on them and see them for what they are, the body can begin to relax. So how you do this is just by naming them, ideally out loud, or you can be writing this whole process out if you have time for that in that moment. You can also just do this in your head, especially when you're crunched on time. So just make sure to be as specific as you can and try to list them all. That helps a little bit more. So the fourth and final step here is to allow it to move through your body. Just feel the emotion, let it run its course for up to 2 minutes, knowing that research shows that that is the maximum time an emotion's physiological symptoms can last. So essentially, an emotion cannot last more than 2 minutes if you process it in the way that I'm telling you to. So just be mindful that you don't keep thinking thoughts that trigger that emotion, because then otherwise you're going to get caught in the loop of that emotion and it will last for more than 2 minutes. So if you had an anxious thought that triggered the anxious emotion in your body, and then you kept thinking that thought even after you process the emotion, then you're going to keep causing that emotion to come up, and it's going to feel like it's stretching on forever and you can never escape it. That's why we want to avoid spiraling in our thoughts, because it will keep us stuck in very uncomfortable emotions. Okay, just to recap. Step 1 is to name the emotion. Step 2 is to accept the emotion without judgment or pushing it away. Step 3 is to name what it feels like in your body. And step 4 is to allow it to move through your body for up to 2 minutes.
Hey friend, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, would you take 30 seconds and leave me a review on Apple Podcasts so more people can find the healing they need? Also, please come join us in the Facebook group where we support and we pray for each other regularly. It lights me up to know that this podcast is helping you. All right, I'm off to go hide in my closet with a journal and my Bible. I'll meet you back in a few days for another episode. See you then.